Forsyth County 911.
Hi, yes. I need an ambulance.
Hey, have y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing.
The deceased woman mentioned in this 911 call is Tamla Horsford, a 40-year-old mother of 5. Forsyth County, Georgia is a place haunted by its racist past. When Tamla, the only black woman at an all-white adult sleepover, was found dead, the inconsistencies in the case confused the entire nation. We began seeing corruption, cover-ups, contradicting stories, and evidence that was never taken into account. Today, her grieving family still searches for answers. Was Tamla's death a terrible accident or something far more sinister? Today's case is a mystery that refuses to be buried. Let's get started and see why this case still interests so many people.
Today's video is sponsored by Aura, and it's a really important time to be talking about them because hackers may have stolen the Social Security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from National Public Data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. These stolen records include a person's full name, address, date of birth, Social Security number, and phone number, along with alternate names and birth date. And members of the hacker group have reportedly released this information for free online. If you weren't taking precautions with your personal information online before, this should be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it because I use Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, email, or Social Security number on the dark web. They're going to let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. They give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst-case scenario happen. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. You can go to my link aura.com/into-the-deep to try 14 days for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. I highly recommend you do this right now, because not only is National Public Data not going to do anything to help you, they probably aren't even going to face any repercussions for this leak. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/into-the-deep to try 2 weeks for free.
Tamla George Horsford was born on October 10, 1978, in Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Everybody who knew her called her Tam for short. When she was 11 years old, her family moved to the Bronx, New York. But later in life, Tamla moved to Florida. There she met and married a man named Leander Horsford. Leander already had a daughter when they met, but together Tamla and Leander had 5 more children, all boys. The people around her said that Tamla was a great mom and wife. She had a fun personality, loved to dance, and was very lively. You could often see her cheering for her boys at their football games with a bullhorn, and her kids could always count on her to be there for them. In 2013, Tamla and her family moved to Cumming, Georgia. Leander's job was the reason for the move. The county they moved to, Forsyth County, had a troubled history with race relations. Back in 1912, over 1,000 black residents were forcefully expelled from the town. Today, Forsyth County is 96% white, and it is still considered by some to be a sundown town. That is, a white community that intentionally prevents black people and other minorities from residing there. On November 3, 2018, Tamla made dinner for her husband and children. After dinner, she left to go to a birthday party for her new friend, Jean Myers. Jean invited a group of moms she knew from the Youth Football League, and the plan was for everyone to spend the night so no one would drive home after drinking. Keep in mind that Tamla knew some of the women at the party, but not very well, so she wasn't entirely sure about going there at first. She barely even knew Jean, but she decided to go anyway, only because she didn't want to let Jean down. Little did Tamla know, this decision would lead to her demise. Tamla arrived at the party around 8:30 p.m. She brought a small overnight bag and a bottle of tequila as a gift for Jean, but it turned out that Jean didn't like tequila and didn't want the bottle. None of the other women at the party wanted any tequila either. So Tamla ended up drinking the tequila herself, while the other women had different drinks. Now, the party was supposed to be just for women, but Jane's boyfriend, Jose Barrera, and another woman's husband, Tom Smith, decided to stay too. While the women drank, talked, and watched the LSU-Alabama football game upstairs in the living room, Jose and the other husband watched football in Jane's basement. So, in total, there were 9 women and 2 men at the party, and 8 of these people planned to spend the night. Tamla was the only smoker at the party, so she often went outside to the porch to have a cigarette. She also smoked some marijuana that night. The host, Jean, teased her about this and said Tamla was like a female Bob Marley. She also reminded Tamla that her boyfriend, Jose, worked for the court and didn't like marijuana use. 2 women left the party at 10:30 p.m. because they didn't have overnight babysitters. Around midnight, the rest of the group started playing a game called Cards Against Humanity in the living room. They played for about an hour because it was already very late. After the game, everyone started cleaning up and getting ready for bed. Around this time, Tamla video called her husband and older daughter. This would be the last time she ever spoke to her family. For some reason, she also decided she wanted to drive home. She thought she hadn't drank much and didn't want to stay overnight anymore. We don't know the exact reason why she changed her mind. The other women at the party tried to convince her to stay because they didn't want her to drive after drinking, so Tamla stayed over to calm everyone's nerves. By 1:30 in the morning, most people had gone to bed. The party host, Jean, and her boyfriend, Jose, also went to bed around this time. When they left, Tamla was still in the kitchen, eating a bowl of gumbo, and she told them she was going to have another cigarette outside. The next morning, Madeline Lombardi, Jean's aunt, who also lived there, looked out into the backyard while making her coffee, when she saw something deeply upsetting. Tamla was lying face down in the grass under the deck. Madeline ran upstairs to tell Jean and Jose what she had seen, but before she did that, she decided to pray next to Tamla's body before trying to help Tamla or call for emergency help. At 8:59 a.m., someone finally called 911.
Okay, what's going on?
We had people over last night. We were drinking. Most of us went to bed. One of them stayed on the balcony. She was drinking, and we just went outside, and she's laying face down in the backyard.
Many people have noted the calm demeanor in the calls. On the 911 call, you can hear Jose telling the operator that he sees a small cut on Tamla's wrist. He said he doesn't know if Tamla did this to herself or if someone else did it.
I'm completely not sure.
Okay, and that's the only blood that you would see?
That's what I can see without moving her over. I haven't seen her face.
Do you know if she was suicidal at all?
I have no clue. I've met her one other time. Like my girlfriend said, people were over last night. She was her birthday party. We're not the woman that we believe to be deceased, but it's my girlfriend's birthday party. Instead of having everybody go out, she had everyone stay in. And she was the last one I saw before everybody was typically put off to bed. She was the last one in the kitchen. She was just either waiting around for a ride or waiting until the morning.
Okay. How far is the where she would have fell from? How far is the deck from the ground?
I would probably say maybe 20 feet.
Okay.
20 feet from where your feet would be on the railing. The railing itself is maybe 3.5, 4 feet.
Okay.
The police arrived at Jean's house at 9:07 a.m., but when they got there, they said Tamla was already dead. The police then called everyone who had been at the party the night before. In total, they talked to 30 people. Doctors did an autopsy on Tamla's body, and they found that Tamla had several strange injuries from being hit or falling. They also found that she had a lot of alcohol in her blood. Her blood alcohol level was .238, which is almost 3 times the legal limit allowed for driving. But even before the autopsy was concluded, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office started thinking Tamla's death was just an accident. They thought she might have fallen from the outdoor deck on the second floor of the house. At first, the police told Tamla's husband, Leander, that Tamla had tripped over some garden edging and fallen on the ground, leading to her death. Jean's aunt, who lives in the house, said she had stumbled over this edging before as well. Not only that, but the police also thought that because Tamla had been drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana, she might have been confused or dizzy. All of these factors would make it more likely for her to fall. The police think Tamla died around 1:57 in the morning. That's when the security system showed that the back door was opened and never closed again. On February 20th, 2019, the police officially closed the case. They said Tamla's death was an accident. But there are still many questions about what really happened to Tamla that night. The officials said that Tamla's injuries didn't look like someone had hurt her on purpose. They said, "It was a party. People were drinking. She was drinking. Most people at the party had gone to bed by then, and she was alone on the deck." But Tamla's husband didn't believe this. He said Tamla could drink half a bottle of tequila and still dance in her high heels, so there was no way she was so drunk that she accidentally fell off the porch. About 2 weeks after Tamla died, another party guest named Stacy Smith talked to the police. She also didn't think Tamla could have fallen off the deck by accident. Stacy said she had been on that deck many times before, and even tried to test if someone who was drunk could lean over the railing to throw up and fall. But no matter how she tried, she couldn't figure out how Tamla could have gone over the railing. Stacy also said that Tamla wasn't acting very drunk or sick that night, even though the tests showed she had a lot of alcohol in her blood. Photos and videos from the party show Tamla smiling and happy. Even though she was drinking tequila, she didn't seem very drunk in the pictures, videos, or what other people remembered. At first, Jean, who owned the house, was so sure that Tamla didn't fall from the balcony that she posted about it on social media. But this changed when Tamla's friend, Michelle Graves, started posting on social media too. Michelle said she thought people at the party knew more than they were telling because things about Tamla's death just didn't make sense. Michelle told the media, "They're totally lying. They're not off the hook because this was not an accident." A few weeks later, some of the people who were at the party, including Jean, sued Michelle. They said Michelle had hurt their reputations with 13 Facebook posts. They claimed these posts falsely accused them of killing Tamla or helping to cover it up. But Michelle said she only posted facts that she had checked in Tamla's case file. When Tamla was found, Jean and Jose said she was lying face down with her arms by her sides and her palms facing up. But when the first responders arrived, Tamla's position was different. Her left arm was stretched out and bent at the elbow, with her fist closed tight. Her face wasn't turned to either side. It looked like she had fallen straight forward onto the ground. This position seemed very unnatural. Even the police officers who came to the scene were confused about how Tamla's body was positioned. One officer said, "If you try to catch yourself with your left hand and there's nothing to grab, you'd spin around, you know. It doesn't make sense. It's like she fell straight down." People also noticed several cuts and scrapes on Tamla's hands and arms. Some wondered if these might be defensive wounds, which could mean Tamla had been in a fight before she went over the balcony. Jose told an investigator on November 7th that he had checked Tamla for a pulse, which might explain why her arm was moved. But later, when talking to a special agent, Jose said this wasn't true. When the agent mentioned the earlier report, Jose called it complete bullshit and said he didn't move her arm or check for a pulse. Jose did tell the police that he found an unlit cigarette and a lighter on the deck before he saw Tamla's body. But because the police thought Tamla's death was just an accident, they didn't check these items for fingerprints. They also didn't protect the area where Tamla was found, which means important evidence might have been lost or changed. In the first 911 call, Jose had said there were security cameras pointed at the backyard, but it turned out all the cameras had dead batteries and hadn't recorded anything. This detail seemed a little too convenient to some people. Tamla's family and friends had other questions too. They wondered why nobody tried to do CPR on Tamla when she was found. Even the police didn't try to help her. They told the ambulance not to come, and Tamla was just put in a body bag and taken away. It seemed like no one made any sort of last-ditch effort to try to save Tamla's life. Many people wondered if Tamla's race played a role in her death. She was the only black woman at a party full of white women. Some thought that if the situation had been reversed, if one white woman had died at a party with mostly black women, the police would have treated it as a crime scene right away. As we've mentioned before, the county where this happened, Forsyth County, has a bad history of racism. Fortunately, Tamla's case became famous across the country, and many people demanded justice for her. Many big celebrities, including 50 Cent and T.I., said they didn't think Tamla's death was just an accident. It wasn't until over 600,000 people signed a petition that Sheriff Freeman asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigations to look at Tamla's case again in July 2020. The police found more records of doors opening and closing around the time they think Tamla died. The garage door opened at 1:40 a.m. and wasn't closed until the next morning. The last person who said they saw Tamla alive, Bridget Fuller, told police that she and Tamla walked to the front door together when Bridget's husband came to pick her up. Bridget said she hugged Tamla before leaving. This matches a door chime at 1:47 a.m. But Bridget's husband said he only saw his wife at the door, not Tamla. All these things that didn't add up made people very suspicious. In December 2018, Jose was fired from his job as a pretrial officer. This was because he used his job to look at documents about Tamla's death that he wasn't supposed to see. People also said he leaked confidential information about her case. But Jose said he didn't do anything illegal and that all the information he looked at was public. Furthermore, when Tamla's body was sent for an autopsy, only 5 photos were taken. This is very unusual for a death investigation. Normally, many more photos would be taken, especially with the kind of injuries Tamla had. Tamla's father thought this was because the police were focusing on investigating Tamla herself, not looking for someone who might have hurt her. There were many questions that didn't make sense. How could Tamla, who had a lot of alcohol in her system, still seem in control, but somehow fall over a 14-foot railing? Why didn't anyone in the house hear her fall or scream? What happened when the door was opened just before 2 a.m., and why wasn't it closed until the next morning? For over a year, Tamla's family fought to have her case looked at again. They didn't believe her death was an accident. They also asked for a second autopsy.
We were all just drinking, and we played cards against humanity.
But her family insists that narrative doesn't solve the puzzle.
You get all this information, and you go, wait, nothing makes sense here.
Ralph Fernandez, the attorney for Tamla's husband, says he's gone through the evidence, every interview, document, and scene photo. So has Tamla's father and friends like Michelle Graves.
Why not just let this go?
I cannot let this go because I know that what they said did not happen to her.
In June 2020, the GBI finally conducted a second autopsy. They found that Tamla had injuries to her head, neck, body, and limbs. These included scrapes on her face, 4 types of bleeding in her skull and brain, her right wrist was out of place, cuts on her arms and legs, a broken neck, and a tear in the right side of her heart. The GBI also found that Tamla had a lot of alcohol in her blood, just like the first autopsy showed. But they also found Xanax in her system, and no one knew how it got there. Tamla's family hired another medical expert for a third opinion. This expert said that Tamla's wrist wasn't just out of place, but had a compound fracture, meaning the bone was sticking out through the skin.
I know this was a homicide. The problem is I can't pin it on anybody because I don't have a badge and I don't have a gun.
This is important because there wasn't much blood found where Tamla was discovered. This makes people wonder where and how she got this injury. The little blood that was found on Tamla's sleeve was on the opposite side of her injury and seemed to have happened after she died. Interestingly, no medical examiner found any big injuries to Tamla's skull and bones. The fact that there was no bruising on the broken bones in her skull makes people question whether she really died from falling from the second floor. When the police talked to everyone who was at the party, they got photos and videos from their phones. But they didn't take the phones or download all the data. They also didn't legally request to look at the partygoers' phones for evidence. This didn't happen until the GBI got involved. By then, at least 2 people had new phones, and detectives found out that some text messages and pictures on some of the phones had been deleted. During their investigation, the GBI found what seemed to be lies from some people who were at the party. One woman, Bridget Fuller, who had severe anxiety, told police her medication made it impossible for her to lie. This claim is unusual, as there's no known medication that prevents lying. Bridget said she always wore a necklace with her Xanax because she depended on it so much. She told investigators she knew it was a controlled substance and hadn't shared it. But when the GBI looked at everyone's phone messages, they found this wasn't true. Bridget had shared some kind of medication with a few people before the party, and she gave some women Xanax at the party. When asked about this, Bridget admitted it was true, but said she didn't give any to Tamla because she didn't know her well. However, Tamla had Xanax in her system, and no one knew why. It's worth noting that Bridget didn't seem to like Tamla much, and it appeared none of the women really did. One of the main detectives on Tamla's case, Michael Christian, left the police department during an internal investigation. The investigation found he had broken his oath of office and neglected his duty. The GBI talked to 2 women who said Michael Christian had told them details about Tamla's case. One ex-girlfriend said he shared Tamla's toxicology report with her and thought Tamla's body had been moved. Another woman said Michael sent her a photo of Tamla's body at the scene. This woman said Michael was so obsessed with the case that he would have panic attacks about it. According to the ex-girlfriend, Michael thought Tamla's death was an accident, but didn't think she fell from a 14-foot balcony. She also said Michael told her he found calls between Jose Barrera and the lead investigator, Andy Kalin, before the 911 call, and he thought maybe Andy helped the partygoers come up with a story. But Jose and Andy both said this wasn't true. The GBI got 3 screenshots of Snapchat messages Michael sent to a girlfriend. In one message sent the day Tamla was found dead, he seemed to be joking about talking to Tamla's husband. The message was very insensitive, making light of Tamla's death and her children's loss. Michael even called Tamla the porch lady at one point. In another message, Michael made disturbing jokes about racism and murder cover-ups. The Horsford family's lawyer thinks part of this message might be referring to Tamla's friend, Michelle Graves. When the GBI asked Michael about these messages, he admitted sending them, but said they were sarcasm and in bad taste. He denied ever sending photos of the crime scene. A friend of Tamla's husband, Stephen Reynolds, told police he was worried Tamla's death might have been sexually motivated. He claimed that 2 couples at the party were swingers and thought someone might have tried to initiate something sexual with Tamla. However, this idea wasn't mentioned anywhere else in the investigation, including in interviews with the couples Stephen named. Instead, the GBI seemed to focus a lot on Tamla's husband, Leander. They searched his phone and social media accounts but didn't find anything suspicious. On July 28, 2021, the GBI finished their investigation. They decided not to pursue any criminal charges. This means Tamla's death is still officially considered an accident, and no one has been arrested or charged. The most heartbreaking part of this story comes from Leander's experience at the funeral home. When he went to see Tamla before the funeral, he couldn't even recognize her. Here's what he said. "When I went into the funeral home, I probably scared everyone because I yelled, 'What the fuck?' as loud as I could. I saw my wife looking like she had black shoe polish all over her face. I flipped out and told them to take it off. They said they had to cover up the bruising, but you don't cover bruising with black shoe polish. My wife is my color, but her skin was so dark, like blackface. I was really angry and was going to close the casket for the viewing." Leander's sons wanted to see their mother, but he was worried about how it would affect them. His oldest son insisted, so Leander let him come in. Leander said, "We both just stood there and looked at her. Neither of us cried because it didn't look anything like her." He described how Tamla's wrist was bent oddly, and you could see where the bone had stuck out. When his son came in, the boy said, "Dad, that doesn't look like an accident." This made Leander decide to leave the casket open, saying, If a 12-year-old can walk up and say it doesn't look like an accident, leave the casket open. Tamla Horsford's funeral was held at McDonald and Son Funeral Home in Cumming, Georgia on Friday, November 9th, 2018. What do you think? Was Tamla's death an accident, or was there something suspicious going on? Do you think there's a massive cover-up involved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more videos like this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. See you in the next one.